Have you ever been in a relationship where it felt like loving the other person was, well, a problem to be solved? We're going to dive into a powerful story today that offers a really surprising answer to that exact question.
It really is a question that can pop up in any relationship, right? How do you love someone who feels like a problem? The story we're exploring today offers a perspective that might honestly change everything for you.
All right, so let's get right into it. Our story starts with a family who adopted a 3-year-old boy. But when they did, his doctors gave them a very, very heavy warning.
The diagnosis was just stark, a major disability. The doctors said flat out that he would likely never speak. I mean, can you imagine hearing that? It must have felt like such a hopeless situation right from the very beginning.
And their daily reality? Wow. It was challenging. He would throw things all the time, flip light switches on and off hundreds of times, and just scream for no reason anyone could figure out. For the whole family, especially for the older son who's sharing the story, living in that constant chaos was just unbelievably difficult. But here's where the whole story pivots. The family's response wasn't to go find some new therapy or a magic cure. No, it was a fundamental shift in their whole perspective.
This slide just lays it out so perfectly. See, on the one hand, they could have seen him as a problem to solve, an issue that needed fixing. But they chose something completely different. They chose to see him as a companion to walk with. The goal wasn't about fixing him or changing him into something else. It was about sharing the journey with him, loving him for exactly who he was right then and there.
And this choice the family made, it actually reveals a much larger principle. It's all about how love can act as this incredibly powerful force against the chaos we all feel when our own worlds seem to be falling apart.
When we hear a phrase like, the end of the world, we immediately think of something huge, something global, but it can be deeply personal too. It's that chaos that floods into our lives when the bonds of love and family start to break. That feeling of disorder, of despair, that's your world falling apart.
And this is where love comes in. The source material for this story presents love as an ordering force, a lot like gravity. Think about it. Other forces can push and pull, but gravity only pulls things together. Well, in the same way, love is this active force that pushes back against the chaos of disconnection and pulls our relationships, our families, and our communities back into order.
Okay, that sounds amazing, right? But how do you actually love like that? How do you keep giving when you feel totally exhausted or maybe even resentful? Well, this story points to a really powerful secret. Thinking like a good steward. So a steward isn't the owner of something, right? They're a caretaker, someone entrusted with something really valuable. The whole idea here is that the love and patience we show doesn't have to come from our own limited supply. Instead, we can see ourselves as caretakers, stewards of a much, much greater source of love. So here's the strategy, broken down into 3 steps. First off, you have to acknowledge your own limits. You just can't do it all on your own strength. Second, see yourself as a channel, not the source. You're letting a greater kindness flow through you. And third, you serve with a supplied strength. This is so key because it's how you avoid the burnout and the resentment that always creeps in when you feel like you're running on empty. So, let's get back to the family in our story. How does all this connect? What was the result of them choosing to be companions instead of problem solvers, of loving like stewards? Well, the outcome was more profound than anyone could have ever predicted. After years and years of silence, one day, the older brother called out to his mother in the kitchen. And in that very moment, he heard another voice echo his. He and his mother both turned, and there was the boy. They asked him, "Can you say that again?" And as clear as day, he said, "Mom." The doctor said he would never speak, but here he was. The family just grabbed him, held him, and cried, feeling all those years of patient love returned in a single beautiful moment.
So, time went on. The boy grew into a man. His condition improved so much that you could barely even tell he'd had a disability. He got a job, he built his own life. And then, eventually, the loving mother who had adopted him, she passed away.
One day, years after that, the phone rang. It was the adopted son calling his older brother. And he asked, "Hey, do you know what day it is today?" The brother had no idea. And his adopted brother said, "It's Dad's and late Mom's wedding anniversary." And the biological son, he was just stunned. He had completely forgotten. And in that moment, the brother realized the deep truth of it all.
The real miracle wasn't that the boy said his first word. The real miracle was that all those years of being treated as a companion, not a problem, hadn't just taught him to talk. It had grown his heart. He became a person who remembered love, who cherished it, and who knew how to give it back.
So this story really leaves us with a question for ourselves. As you think about your own life, your own relationships, who might you be treating as a problem to solve? And what could change? What could really change if you decided instead to see them simply as a companion to walk with on this journey?